welcome back to the PDPreps podcast. This is episode 8. We are here, October 12th, 2022. If this is your first time joining us, welcome to the pod. Welcome to the show. I'm Gus Morris, sports reporter of the Press Democrat, joined as always by my colleague and co-host Keenan O'Doherty. If you have been here before, you know the drill. We're going to be recapping week 7 results, going over our rankings for week 8 and previewing some of the week 8 games coming up, including a big one, Rancho Cotati and Windsor, two of the better teams in the area, and two teams competing for an NBL Oak title this year. But before we kind of get to all of that, we kind of want to open the pod with talking about the play and the injury to Rancho Cotati senior quarterback Liam Keeney late in the game, in their game last week against Annalee. Keeney, in the game, fourth quarter, on a nice little run, slides down and takes a late hit to the head, knocked him out. He was motionless for a few minutes, and then he had to get stretchered off, taken to a hospital. He's since been released. He's home now. Resting and recovering, but he's probably going to be out for a while. We're not sure if he's going to return this year. So first and foremost, just giving our best to Liam and their family and his recovery process coming back. We're glad he's okay. Scary play. But yeah, there's been kind of a lot of discourse about that the last couple of days about if it was a dirty hit. Kind of the punishment that people think that the player who delivered it deserved, but we're going to touch on it a bit more here, but Keenan, you were actually at the game and you were pretty close to the play. So I don't know, can you tell us kind of what happened from your perspective?
Yeah, Gus, I mean, first and foremost, you put it best. Our condolences and thoughts go out to all of Liam's family and especially himself. Luckily he is as good as he can be from what people are hearing. But yeah, regarding the play itself, it's interesting because they were like, Rancho was up 31-13. There are just over 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and obviously you still want to compete to the very end. But it was a passing play, actually, believe it or not. Rancho was using Liam's legs throughout most of the second half, and it was doing very well, but this was a passing play. Liam didn't see anything, kind of scrambled out away from the pocket to his left and ended up gaining a big chunk of yardage. So I guess it worked in a way, if there's any positive on that note, but gained a big chunk of yardage, saw the defender closing in, and started to slide down, and he slid for a good 2 or 3 yards, and then the defender kept coming in and led with his helmet, and bam, helmet to helmet. Liam was defenseless on the ground. Helmet immediately whacked into the turf and just kind of stayed there. And Liam was motionless for a good 5 or so minutes until I was able to see through the crowd of coaches and paramedics. He was able to be a little bit more responsive and move his fingers and stuff like that. But he was down for a long time. And both and everyone was screaming at one another, take a knee. All the players were taking a knee. All the Rancho Cotati players were around Liam taking a knee before they were ushered off by an assistant coach to kind of give everyone some space. The entire Annalee sideline ended up taking a knee. But yeah, and at that case, Coach Hodling decided to initiate the conversation of ending the game there, not as a forfeit, but as a final score of 31-13, and that's kind of where it ended, with 2 minutes and 8 seconds, I want to say, in the fourth quarter. But that is Coach Hodling said it best. That is the worst play he's ever seen in all of his years of coaching. And it's not only as dangerous play as it is, but it's a very traumatizing play for people that are watching, and especially these high school kids, who I know the amount. I can't tell you the amount of Rancho players that were visibly shaken up, for time after the fact. And even some Manly guys were visibly shaken up as well. But yeah, so he was on the field. He was showing motion in his fingers and stuff like that. Ambulance did end up coming out. He was stretchered onto the ambulance. And that was, and only then did Coach Holding call his team to the locker room. Keep in mind that the entire section, the entire stadium, all the fans were ushered off the field, way like the minute the game was called. They were ushered off the field. There was really no fans or anything, and rightfully so. Obviously, you got kids there. I mean, you just don't want to see that. But the other part of it is, I think, is the fact that this Liam was having, and I mean, hopefully we do see him. But he was having a great season up until that point. Obviously not his best game. He did throw it 3 interceptions, but he was doing all you want from your senior quarterback. But yeah, it's a dangerous play. Nobody wants to see that happen, especially to a quarterback who's sliding down. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Yeah, but I mean, yeah,
it's not a conversation that we're enjoying having right now, and it's definitely not. I mean, again, obviously, you were there, and it was a very, like you said, it was one of the worst plays you've ever seen. I've had another coach or two tell me the same thing. Like, they've seen the film of it and said this is the most dangerous and terrifying play I've ever seen. And there's video out there of it, and I mean, again, just go like if. View it at your own discretion because it is pretty jarring.
Absolutely.
So a few other things I guess we'll touch on this before we kind of move on and into the actual game, and then a few of the other games themselves. But one of the other big points from this was after the game. You would talk to Garrett Godling, Rancho's head coach, and he had some very strong words for the officials. He found that the way that the game was being reffed was substandard, that Annalee was kind of on the short end of some calls, that there was some bias maybe against some of their players. He said there was even a comment from one of the referees directly about how Ranch's players were too big, and that's why they called fouls on them. So he definitely was blaming the refs in a sense for kind of how the play and the game ended and developed, that they kind of allowed that behavior. I'll be kind of interested to see how Garrett, how Rancho is officiated from here on out. You don't often see a coach kind of come out and call out officials like that, especially in high school. So I'll be interested to kind of see where that goes. But I think you had mentioned too that they were maybe even looking into filing a formal complaint, or was that?
Yeah, that's kind of something I kind of just heard, just overheard. So I'm not sure how serious that is or anything.
Yeah.
But but yeah, it was again, like you kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's you don't really see coaches call out officials in this manner. But I mean, I mean, the amount of penalties in the first half on both teams were astronomical, and I know, Gus, there was a lot of flags thrown in your game, which we'll get onto later. But there definitely were some more or less suspect penalties from my perspective on both teams. Specifically, I'm looking at a block in the back called on the Rancho Cotati defensive lineman and offensive lineman Malik Cleveland. That was not a block in the back, and Garrick specifically cited that play as in his post game quote where he said they were too big. He said that they called the block on the back penalty on Malik Cleveland because he was too big.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely it's definitely interesting to see, like you said, how things go forward with Rancho with the referees and that thing. But I mean, for a coach to go that hard on officials is definitely something worth noting and worth kind of following up to see.
Yeah, it's not something I've ever seen or seen before. I've definitely heard heard it, about like off the records, things like that, coaches complaining about, officiating, but never. And I think Garrett even said, like, he's like, I want you to quote me on this. And he specifically was saying some stuff like that.
Oh,
So,
yeah. I asked him, I was like, you want it on record? He was like, yeah. But no, I was okay.
yeah.
And
So
then I just gave him the floor.
Yeah. So I mean, again, but it just kind of shows you again, just, kind of how, where people were kind of at after this game. Because it was very, because that was also even in the final moments after it. So still very fresh. Don't even know at that point if Liam's going to be okay. So just, yeah, emotional and scary. And, yeah, I mean, even today, what is it, 5 days later, still pretty, the wounds are pretty fresh there, I guess, for both sides. I had talked to Annalise coaching, or at least one of their coaches yesterday, tried to kind of get some of their perspective on things. Obviously, so the player who delivered the hit has been suspended. He will not be playing next week's game. I know that there are some people calling for a more stringent punishment. They want more than a 1-game suspension. It's kind of up to Annalise. But I mean, from what I heard from the coach, the player himself is pretty shaken up. I don't think there was, there's been some discussion of whether it was intentional, like if he was trying to intentionally hurt Liam or not. The kid said he wasn't. He feels bad about the hit. There was no malintent behind it. And yeah, Annalie at this point is kind of using this as a teaching moment about intent versus actuality on the field. So, and especially how, again, bang bang plays like this, whether you decide to tackle a guy a second or half a second late or a second late, literally could be a life or death decision sometimes. So this is something that Annalie, again, completely regrets. Again, they're wishing the best for Liam and his road back. They regret that it happened. And they're hoping to learn from it and move on. So hopefully we don't see anything like this again. But again, football is a violent sport. Injuries do happen. Bad injuries like this do happen. So I think all that we can kind of say to end this discussion is, we hope that Liam makes a full recovery. We're not sure if we're going to see him again this year. Again, I know he's back at home resting right now. But there's still not really a timetable for his return, and for kind of an intense concussion like that, when you get knocked out, I know it's definitely an extended recovery process. So, wishing Liam kind of the best in his road back with that. So, any last thoughts on this, Keenan, before we can move on?
Nope. I think you hit everything. Everyone's got their own personal take on it. So I mean, we obviously can't. We're not going to sway or attempt to sway the opinions of others or anything like that. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But yep. Liam, honestly, I know we're doing a job here, but at the end of the day, we're all humans. So we wish you the best, and hope to see you back on a football field here soon.
Absolutely. Well, I guess we will move on to the actual game itself. Like you kind of mentioned, this is the first week of NBL play. Rancho, sloppy game, like you also kind of mentioned too, but Rancho ultimately came away with a 31-13 win over Annalie. It was close though. Going into the third quarter, I think it was Annalie was leading, correct? And then Rancho kind of pulled away late.
Yeah, so it was interesting. It was a 10-7 game at half. Which, to be honest, if you
not what we expected.
If you had marked down Annalie and Rancho on your little like games to watch, you wouldn't expect it to be you would have expected to be a shootout and possibly a solid quarterback duel between Liam Keeney and Annalie quarterback Sammy Long. But it was everything but that, to say the least, which was honestly kind of good, to be fair. I was talking to Annalie head coach Dan Bourdain after the game, and he was very optimistic, along with the rest of the team, that they were only down 3 points at halftime.
Yeah.
And they came out in the third quarter and ended up taking the lead 13-10. But then that's when kind of Rancho turned it up a little bit. And they were aided big time, obviously. I mean, Sai did his thing. Sai Vajwale, UC Berkeley commit, did his thing. But one player I want to talk about, and Gus, this is why I love football. Okay, Abel Calvillo. Okay, he is their place kicker. He has been nailing field goals and PATs their entire year, but he also plays little bit of wide receiver, and a little bit of defensive back. He had 2 interceptions, one including a pick six that kind of put the game on ice a little bit. And then right after the pick six, he turned right back around and nailed the PAT. So congratulations, Avel. This is why we love football, for players like you, my friend. But obviously we just talked on the biggest story with Liam, and I mean obviously he's going to be out for a little bit, and from the rumblings I'm hearing is that Jacob Pruitt will be stepping into the quarterback role. I will confirm that later today. We are recording this on Wednesday the 12th, like you said before, but I will confirm that later today. But looks like Pruitt is the next man up for the big tilt against Windsor. But yeah, I mean, it took Rancho a little bit to kind of get moving. But once they did, they certainly got it rolling. And the other thing is it's not like Annalee was playing bad. Annalee's defense was playing really well. They were running Jaden Brady all over the place. He had a really great game. I did a 100-yard walk with him prior to the game as well. Great kid. But he had a really good game and was crucial on that third quarter touchdown drive. So yeah, I mean, despite Logan Mitchell being out, Annalee still has some weapons, and they're still that exciting team to watch. So we'll see how they do against Newman this week. So yeah, I mean, sloppy start for Rancho, but they kind of took care of business later on in the game.
Yep, like you mentioned, big year for Cy, 7 catches, 142 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just that's pretty in line for him. But yeah, and then I also would not be surprised next week if it's, so Jacob Pruitt, junior linebacker, but he's also kind of their QB2. But another fun fact is that he's also the fastest high school boy in the entire county.
He's so fast.
He's the 100 is the reigning 100 and 200, I believe, NCS Redwood Empire champion. So, I mean, this guy is, again, as fastest kid in the entire county. So it'll be interesting to kind of see. I don't, again, we haven't really seen him throw a whole lot. Even last year, he didn't, I think he might have gotten into a game or two, when they were up big, but I, really haven't seen his arm a lot. But I would not be surprised, if we see a lot of maybe run packages out of Jacob. And then the other thing too is I would not be surprised if we see Cy just take a lot of direct snaps and add a wildcat and then just say hey Cy, go make a play, which they've done before, and it works out pretty dang well most of the time. So wouldn't be surprised if we see a bit of that next week against Windsor, or this week against Windsor, which should be really kind of exciting to see. So should we move on to the Windsor Santa Rosa game? Actually, no. Let's talk about the Newman Montgomery game that I was at last week. So, So if Rancho is our number 2, is our number 1 team in the area, Newman has been our number 2 team, pretty much all season. They won their NBL opener 42-15 over Montgomery. Monty's 3rd straight loss. They've had kind of a rough little streak here. Losing to Casa, losing to St. Vincent, and now losing to Newman. Again, those are all pretty good teams. So, I think Monty is also, still a good team, but, kind of a bit of a skid here. And I think they have a get right game coming up this week against Santa Rosa. But, definitely some coming back down to earth for Monty after a really hot 2-0 start. And we had them, I think, in our top 4, I want to say, in our rankings. But, like you had said about your game, this game was crazy sloppy. I had counted 26 total turnovers or 26 total penalties for the game. Newman had 16 of them. I lost track of how many yards they lost as far as penalties go, but super sloppy. Score was only 14-7 at half. Newman's, I think their first score came off of a Montgomery muff punt. I think they turned that into a score, and then I forgot their other score, but it was 14-0. Montgomery comes back, gets a touchdown just before halftime. It was 14-7, and I'm kind of looking at this like, okay, we might have a game. This is kind of a weird game. Like, no one really has flow. Newman's defense was playing really well. But their offense just kind of kept shooting themselves in the foot with all these penalties. And then The return of Santino Acevedo, he suited up for the first time in the last 3 games. He's been out, with an ankle injury. Suited up, 3 touchdowns in the third quarter. Newman pulls away. Santino had 160 rushing yards, 15 carries. Just a beast. I had some video highlights of him, and he was just shoving people to the ground. Tacklers were coming up to him, and he would just stiff arm them and toss them aside like they were not even
Classic.
there. He's he's a freak. So Newman is definitely trending upwards, especially with with Santino back. This week again, like you mentioned, they have Annalee. This will be kind of an interesting duel against a very heavy passing offense. They haven't played a lot of heavy passing offenses yet this year, been primarily running offenses. So this will be kind of a good test. Again, they have a ton of great defenders on the outside. So we'll kind of get into our predictions as well. But Newman goes Montgomery. This week they have Annalee, and then next week they have Rancho. So that's a pretty tough slate to open league like that. And then again, the game that we're looking at too is that Newman-Windsor game, early in November. So yeah, I mean it's interesting because the Keeney injury has kind of thrown the Oak into even more of a bit of a loop here, where Rancho was kind of looking at this very clear-cut #1 team in the area. And now without Liam, again, we'll kind of see what they look like this week. But I mean, maybe this opens the door for sure a bit for teams like Newman and Windsor, which we thought that all of those would be very good matchups. But again, now that Rancho has to go to a backup quarterback, they're without their the reigning NBL Offensive Player of the Year. This could be a very, very interesting race. And this game this week, Rancho Windsor could go a long way in deciding, how this goes. So we were already very excited about NBL play coming up, and I think it's just going to get even crazier here in these next few weeks. So, any notes on this game?
Yeah, well, I completely agree with you, and I think another key takeaway to kind of take from this as well, from the 2 games we just talked about, is that Annalee and Monty could still turn it up at any time. It's not like they're going to be a walkover by any sense of the imagination. And obviously we'll talk about our next game in a sec, but that we've been preaching all year, the Oak is probably as deep as it's ever been. So even with Newman, Windsor, and Rancho, like, we're focusing on them playing each other. Like when they play Monty or Annalee, it's certainly not a gimme. Because we know how Annalee's offense can explode at any time, and Monty has that quarterback in Lucas Foy who's been playing pretty well as well. So yeah, I mean the Oak is exciting, like you said, but I think interesting game for Windsor this week, Gus, as well. Obviously they took care of business at Santa Rosa. They did it without their starting quarterback, Judson Anderson. Coach Dean Sexton told us it was a minor injury, but he's back this week against Rancho. And Gus, I mean, plug in Hayden Anderson at QB. He didn't really pass much, but he ran all over the place. And I mean, that kid just continues to amaze us. And he's only a sophomore. Just remind that. I don't know if it's the orange cleats or what it is, but he's just a very good football player. But also, Gus, you kind of mentioned this, but a great game from Ricky Campos at running back. Would you kind of read from him?
Yeah, I mean, this just going off stats alone. I mean, 12 carries, 132 yards, touchdown for Campos, a junior running back. He hasn't, he's gotten some play in the running game this year, but really it's been guys like Wyatt and Dom Morris, and even like Max McFerrin. So I don't know if Santa Rosa was kind of toying around and getting some other guys some run, kind of to open up the league, but man, just their running back depth is crazy good. I mean, again, Wyatt Morris was having a great sophomore season as well. And then again, you plug in guys like Dom and Max. It's like that was already a great little three-headed beast you got going on there. And now Ricky has kind of emerged as, I mean, he coming out his best game. I'm sure his confidence is sky high too. So any number of guys there can hurt you in Windsor's running game. And yeah, like you mentioned, Hayden, man, I mean, this guy too, he's not only one of the best wide receivers, defensive backs in the whole Bay Area, he might be one of the best athletes just in general. I mean,
absolutely.
To come in like as a wide receiver, and it's like, hey, we're gonna play you at quarterback. And Windsor, I mean, again, Windsor ran the ball 37 times and only attempted 2 passes, but Hayden Anderson, 7 carries, 170 yards, 3 touchdowns. It's a pretty efficient day at the office right there. So
that's like a size stat. This is like a size stat line, but receiving.
it's like a Madden stat line. It's like,
yeah, honestly, create a player.
That's like a Lamar Jackson. Like, I'm not gonna. So yeah, I mean, again, Windsor rolling right along. They coming off of 2 bye weeks. Obviously, they had the original bye week, and then the game last week was canceled against Skyline. So or 2 weeks ago, I guess. So yeah, I mean, again, rest versus rust, no rust at all. It seems like they're well rested, and yeah, they're again getting Judson back for this week's game against Ranchos is going to be big. So you're going to be at that one. That's your game of the week. We'll preview that one here in a second, but let's get to a couple more games. One more point you got.
Yeah, one more thing. I've heard rumors coming out of Santa Rosa's camp that or at the game that star wide receiver Nolan Frost was actually injured in the 4th quarter, and he'll be out for a couple weeks. So not that obviously we'll have to confirm that, but not ideal news if you're a Panther fan.
That's too bad. Nolan's having a great season, and I think he's probably destined to play somewhere next year. So hopefully this is a small setback for a big comeback. So
yep.
All right, heal up there, Nolan. All right, moving over to the NBL Redwood. I guess the first game we'll touch on is St. Vincent Pioneer. Just kind of a quick one here. St. Vincent 53, Pioneer 16. Career win number 100 for head coach Trent Herzog. I think I had the records. I think he won 66 games. Yep. Applaud. Yep. Cheers for Trent. St. Vincent is 6-0. Yeah, they have a really good non-league game this week coming up on Saturday against St. Bernard's. We'll also be at that one. But yeah, another big game for Kai Hall. Not a surprise. Three total touchdowns. I think he had 130 rushing yards on like 9 carries. He had a kickoff return touchdown. Big game from Jared Passarge too. Not a big surprise. St. Vincent won big here, but yeah, definitely props to Trent for hitting win number 100. Starters coach career over at his alma mater Casa Grande. I think won 66 games there. I think over like 10 seasons, 7 or 8 seasons. Mm-hmm. And then, 4 seasons here at St. Vincent. He's turned this team into just a complete powerhouse. So, props to Trent.
Man, they are so tough to beat right now. They are just on a freaking roll, and Kai is doing their thing. And Jared Bosarge, man, he's really taken the role from Dante Antonini really well. So obviously a bigger test than earlier in the season this week, but we'll touch on that later. Ukiah Maria Carrillo, and Gus, this was one that I think, well, I wasn't surprised about because I picked Ukiah. But you certainly were a little surprised at this one. From what we're hearing, not much offense on either team. It was the final score after 1 quarter, and then nothing else really happened. But Gus, you kind of got some rumblings that we obviously weren't at that game, that Carrillo could have been down one of their star running backs. I'm not sure how true that is. Maybe you got more on that. What's kind of the deal?
Yeah, no, our freelancer, I guess Higgins didn't mention any injuries to our freelancer, but I guess it was one of their better running backs, which it is just trying to film put the pieces together. It was either Sam Mortimer or Sam Lawson, one of those 2 guys who have both had outstanding seasons for them so far. So, so I don't know who was out specifically for them, but yeah, 14-0 is definitely surprising. Korea was a very, very hot team, and we've been very high on them.
So is Ukiah though. Ukiah is very hot as well.
And so I was going to get to that too, is that Korea has had a great season, and we've been talking about them again, despite their losing record. But then you look over Ukiah, it's like, oh wait, you guys are 4-2. You guys are on a 4-game winning streak. So all of a sudden Ukiah, and again, they beat, their last 2 wins, they beat Casa Grande, and now they shut out Carrillo. So, again, not a lot of offense, but this kind of shows that Ukiah's defense can also kind of step up, when it needs to as well. So, a very interesting result, especially as far as it goes for the NBL Redwood race. We kind of looked at this game as, this is kind of going to, this game will probably decide who will be the kind of top competitor to St. Vincent for the NBL Redwood title. And at the moment it's Ukiah. Ukiah and St. Vincent are, currently the top 2 teams. They play each other, I believe, in a few weeks. I think St. Vincent has to go to Ukiah. Don't quote me on
Yep.
that. That's okay.
Yep.
And then yeah, I mean, again, St. Vincent still has to play both of these teams. So we kind of thought that it was going to be Carrillo. And again, maybe with when Carrillo gets whoever they were missing back, maybe that will be the case. But for the moment, it's Ukiah, and Ukiah's 4-2. A 1-0 in the NBL Redwood. This is their first year. They were up in the Oak last year. They're back down in the Redwood this year, and you would talk to them before the season, and they're as confident as ever that they can they can take this thing. So, yeah, I mean that St. Vincent game in a couple weeks is going to be huge. But yeah, just definitely a big Ukiah or a big result for Ukiah to open league like this.
Yeah, and keep in mind, folks, that this game was between the two teams that had actually dropped down from the Oak last season as well. So that's also a neat little tidbit there. But yeah, Ukiah, man, they have some athletes on that team. They're just I love their confidence because they got some charisma with those big boys up there. But yeah, good for the Wildcats. All right, Gus. Let's talk about the Eagles, shall we? Kind of big win over St. Helena, 44-36. Another huge game for Mason Cattarelli. Obviously, six touchdowns. I mean, we heard rumblings that it was 4 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns. Gus, I'm not sure if you confirmed that.
I got confirmation it was 6.
Okay, it was 6.
I actually have his complete stats here, which, again, are you ready? 221 rushing yards on 31 carries, 4 rushing touchdowns, 4 for 4 passing for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. So 324 total yards of offense, all 6 touchdowns for the Eagles in their win over St. Helena.
He's a freshman. What's that chant? He's a freshman.
14 years old, man. This kid is
he's a freshman.
This kid's going places. Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, huge win for Cloverdale. They've kind of put themselves in the clear driver's seat for NCL1 play, especially with their schedule. And Gus, we kind of talked about their schedule last week, but they still have to play Clear Lake, who's also undefeated, so they're tied atop the NCL1 right now. But I guess in favor of Cloverdale, they've gotten Willits and St. Helena out the way. Clear Lake still has to play Willits, St. Helena and Willits. They will play Willits before they play Cloverdale in the final game of the season. But Gus, this snaps a pretty bad streak for the Eagles, dating back to the late 2000s, doesn't it?
2009, last time the Cloverdale won the NCL1 title, and it was also the last time that they beat St. Helena. So 12-game losing streak to the Saints snapped. Cloverdale is all of a sudden has the inside track for the NCL1 title. So obviously, again, a lot of tough games still coming up. I think they have Kelseyville this week, and they still have to play Middletown, and I believe maybe Lower Lake too. There's some other.
I think it is Lower Lake. It's Lower Lake than Clear Lake. It's the 2 lakes.
So the schedule said the lakes, 2 parts of the lake. So the schedule kind of lightens up a little bit here, but yeah, I mean that November 4th game against Clear Lake is gonna very very well could be to decide the NCL1 title. And again, we still have a month to go in the season, but which is crazy too that we're 7 weeks through the football season already. It's flown by at this point, but. Yeah, some interesting games coming up for Cloverdale. Last game we'll touch on here, and then we'll kind of get into our Week 8 preview. Casa Grande 53, Sonoma Valley 0. Petaluma was off this week after they beat Vintage 2 weeks ago. Not really a whole lot to discuss here. Casa, just they have 60. I think they have 60 athletes or 60 players on their team, and I think Sonoma Valley dressed like 19. I want to say for this game, so just kind of a big size and talent disparity, I guess too, but. Five passing touchdowns for Wyatt Abramson. I'm pretty sure Casa has not input stats yet. But yeah, tough game for Sonoma Valley. I mean, again, this is a team that started the year 3-0. Great start for them. They're a very, very young team. They have not had a winning season in years. And yeah, I mean, we knew that VVAL play was going to be tough for them. So far it has been. I think they have a few maybe winnable games still left on the calendar, or they still have to play Napa, which I guess they could get a VVAL win there maybe, but yeah, good bounce back win for Casa though after dropping a game to 2 games to Vintage and then Ukiah. So yeah,
back on the board
for Casa. All right. Week 7 wrapped up. Let's take a look ahead at Week 8. We'll start off with our rankings going into Week 8. Actually, I think this is the first time in a while we've had no change at all in our top 5. So Stay the same as last week. Rancho Cotati 1, Cardinal Newman 2, Windsor 3, St. Vincent 4, Petaluma at 5, bubble teams, Anley, Montgomery, Ukiah, Maria Carrillo, Casa Grande, and Cloverdale. Welcome to the mix. Not
well deserved.
Well deserved. Not a whole lot, I guess, to really touch on here, other than I guess to say that next few weeks, this week obviously we have Rancho and Windsor 1-3 matchup. Week after that we have Rancho Newman 1-2 matchup, and then in a few weeks we're gonna have that Newman Windsor matchup, which currently now is 2-3. We'll see where it's at in a few weeks. So, yeah, not a whole lot else to say about those, but yeah, I guess we'll kind of preview that top 5 matchup here. Keenan, Rancho Cotati 5-1, 1-0 NBL Oak at Windsor 4-2, 1-0. Biggest game of the season so far for local teams, I'd say.
Without a doubt. And this is kind of what league play is all about. These big games like this, obviously, Windsor has a very, very strong case to be even number 2 in our rankings. I mean, the top 3 are so close. So we'll kind of see if there's any gap between the teams at all. But yeah, I mean, this is at Windsor's place, which is good. This is because of the Windsor's certainly one of the bigger stadiums in our area. And I was talking with head coach Dean Sexton, Windsor's head coach Dean Sexton yesterday, and he's pumped about the atmosphere. He thinks it's going to be a packed house.
If you're going to this game, get there early. Parking will be tough to get.
Yes, very, very, very true, very true. But yeah, this is going to be an interesting one, obviously, and the Keeney injury definitely plays a huge factor. Obviously, we don't want it to. We want it to still be healthy, but it plays a huge factor, and we'll see what both coaches kind of come up with offensively and defensively. We know both have size up front on the lines, so that'll be a kind of a key factor is the play in the trenches there. But I think this is going to be super exciting, and I think one of the most key matchups that you're going to see is obviously on the outside, Hayden Anderson versus Sai Vajwale.
Right.
That's going to be high. This could be highlight heaven, or this could be lockdown central. Either nobody gets anything, or they both get everything. But these are the matches we kind of love to see as obviously high school reporters and just as football fans. 2 great players going at it. But we'll see if some of the unsung heroes could possibly come out to play and show what they're made of. But here we go, Gus. Buckle your seatbelts because things are about to get crazy.
Yep, this is kind of the stretch that we've been waiting for all season, and excited it's here. I mean, again, you have that one on Friday, and then again you're on double duty this week. I'll be putting
double dip for me, baby.
Yep. So you're also going to be at the St. Vincent St. Bernard's game, which should be a good one, and we'll kind of get into that one here in a second. And then next week again, I'll be at Rancho Cardinal Newman, which has been historically one of the better rivalry matchups, over the last decade here in the county. And then again, another big one to stay tuned for too is Newman Windsor, which is one of the best growing rivalries, I'd say, in the entire county. So some great ones coming up. And then also too, that's not even to mention like Vival, Petaluma and Casa Grande play, I think in next week, I want to say a week after that.
Week after that, I
think it's the 20s.
Because that's our game of the week that week.
Yeah, I think it's the 22nd. I want to say something like that. So that'll be again, could be a Vival decider over there too. So again, league play. This is what it's all about. So we got some good ones coming up. All right, on to our week 8 predictions. Keenan, you got another game on me again last week. You had this is our first undefeated week, wasn't it? Keenan,
look, man, I guess I didn't really notice it, but I guess I'm creeping up on you a little bit. Obviously still have the lead. So Gus, you were 6-1 last week. I was 7-0. You hear that? Goose egg. Big 0. Boom. Big 7 for Keenan.
First undefeated week so far for any of us. So Gus, for me in the standings, but closing the gap.
Gus, well, overall, Gus, you still have the advantage. You're at 55-25. I'm in the 50s. I got 51-29. And Gus, obviously the big one that screwed you over. you can't pick against those big boys up in Ukiah, my friend. So you chose Maria Correa for that one, and that hurt you a little bit. But anyways, we're on the new predictions this week, and this could be either a bloodbath for us with our predictions, or this could go very well. Who the heck knows? But starting with Rancho Cotati at Windsor, we kind of touched on this one a little bit before the podcast recording. This was kind of the game where I don't think people would be upset if we split this one, just because of how this one's shaping up to be. You have Windsor, I have Rancho Cotati. My biggest factor is the Rancho Cotati emotional factor with Liam Keeney being out there. I mean, they're going to be playing for that kid, and their emotions are going to be high. So I just don't see Rancho really losing with that regard. But Gus, the Jaguars like you, so you're going with the Jaguars.
I mean, like you said, we talked about this at length before we started recording, but this was a tough one for me. Like you said, I think the emotional factor will absolutely be at play. I think Ranch is going to be playing inspired for the rest of the year. Again, whether that's Keeney comes back or not. Yeah, I think Rancho is definitely going to have some fire underneath them, at least for this week and at least moving forward. That being said, yeah, I mean, I think even with Keeney, I think that this game was probably a pick 'em. I mean, Windsor and Rancho, Rancho's kind of been again our clear-cut number one team, and Windsor has had some really impressive results as well. So I thought that this one could have been close either way. But I think when you take out, Keeney, I think it's probably advantage Windsor. And like you mentioned too, I think some of these matchups are going to be awesome to watch. I mean, seeing Cy and Hayden on the outside, even Hayden and Anias Walker on the outside, seeing the Windsor running backs going up against Rancho's line, vice versa, all those things. I think the battle at the line is going to be fascinating because Windsor's strength has always been their line play, and Rancho's line does an amazing job too, especially for a lot of guys where a lot of these guys have never will not go on and play line in college, and the coaching staff just routinely does an amazing job getting these guys into like top tier varsity playing shape. So I think there's interesting matchups all across the board, but I think with Keeney out, with Judson back, I think advantage Windsor in this one. So it could go either way. I'm not expecting a one-sided result in either regard, but I'm going to go Windsor on this one.
Yep, there it is. All right, it's kind of another game we both had trouble picking just because the contrast of styles in this one is pretty interesting. Cardinal Newman at Annalee. We both going Cardinal Newman in this one. I think with Santino back, I just don't. And I know Annalee's had trouble stopping the run a little bit. I just don't see how Annalee stops him, especially if Montgomery couldn't do anything to stop Santino. I mean, 3 TDs in the third quarter alone. So, I mean, Santino really just opens up the rest of the offense for Cardinal Newman, and for that reason, I'm going with the Cardinals. What about you?
Yeah, same thing. This was also one that I kind of thought was like it took me a minute to kind of look at this one for a second as well, where like you mentioned the contrast of styles. Newman has played pretty exclusively run heavy teams this whole season. And Annalee is, a very, very heavy passing team. So I'll be curious to see if Logan Mitchell comes back. But at the same time, like just because a team, is a passing team doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be successful. And then especially looking at, Newman with having Santino back, like you also mentioned, and just seeing how hard it was for Monty's guys to bring him down. I just think Santino is like he's only going to get better as the weeks goes on. His ankle is starting to is feeling better as we go. So yeah, I think that Newman is going to start to hit a bit of a stride here. And I thought that this probably at first thought I thought maybe this one could be interesting, and especially with Annalee kind of giving Rancho a battle last week. But I think that Santino is just kind of too much of a force. So Newman in this one.
Fair enough. Santa Rosa at Montgomery. Montgomery returns home. Obviously, the potential loss of Nolan Frost is huge for the Panthers. I think at least Montgomery is going to bounce back in this one, kind of get their first NBL Oak win under their belt this year. Gus, you are going with the Vikings as well.
Yeah, I think that Monty is due for a get-right game. I believe this is homecoming for them as well. Santa Rosa, yeah, the wins have been kind of hard to come by for Santa Rosa. And this game actually, I did see this game last year, and Santa Rosa won this game, and it was actually very exciting. It was not a great game for Montgomery, but I think again, this is a new year. I think Monty is going to be hungry to bounce back after three straight losses. So yeah, I'm taking Montgomery in this one.
Yep. Ukiah at Healdsburg. Healdsburg comes off a much needed bye week. They welcome Ukiah to Rec Park, but I mean, your poor Greyhounds, man.
Well,
I mean, it sucks.
careful.
It sucks that the first team
Careful.
they come out of bye week is the hottest team in the one of the hottest teams in the league. So, Ukiah is just going to be too big for Healdsburg. I mean, and all that talent on the outside. For that reason, I'm going Ukiah. I guess you have the same.
Yeah, I mean, again, you know how hard it is for me to pick against my Greyhounds, but this is yeah, I think all the winnable games for Hillsburg, I think, are probably behind them at this point. So unfortunately, yeah, I think it's Ukiah in this one.
All right, Piner at Maria Carrillo. Obviously, Piner did not do well against St. Vincent at home this last week. They traveled to Maria Carrillo this week. I think this is a bounce back game for Carrillo, especially after that showing up in Ukiah. I just think Maria Carrillo runs all over him. To be completely honest with you, nothing against Piner, obviously. Love Terrence Bell and those guys, but Maria Carrillo's just running back carousel is going to be too much.
Yep. Especially again, you're right, coming off that loss, I think that they're going to want to bounce back. They've been on, we've talked about it at length, but two of their losses have been by, last second scores. And so I think that again, we've said this before as well, but 2-4, they're much better than the record indicates. And I think that they're trying to get back to that point too, where I think that they, especially coming off of that loss, I think that they see maybe a path at winning out. And if they can win out, I think that would be very interesting. But yeah, I think Korea bounces back nicely in this one, especially if their backs are back. So, yeah, whoever was out last week or mystery player who was out, yeah, if they are back, I think this will be a Korea win.
Yep. Napa at Casa Grande. We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. We're both going with Casa Grande here. We think this is a VVAL win for them. Probably not one of the only they have left because I mean they're still Casa Grande. They're the defending league champs, but we have the Gauchos in this one.
Yeah, I don't think this will be that dramatic. Napa's not a great team. They're working their way back, but yeah, I think Casa yeah, gets back into the win column with this one as well. So
Napa could sure use Brock Bowers back, couldn't they?
I'm sure they would like that. Honestly,
I'm sure they would love him back.
If you get Brock Bowers back, I think you're undefeated at this point.
Yeah, Gus. For those listening, Gus sends out his weekly Brock Bowers as an animal tweet every Saturday. It's kind of like a tradition nowadays. Man. Yeah, he's an amazing player. All right, Petaluma at Sonoma Valley. Petaluma comes off the bye, refreshed after that win at Vintage. So well deserved bye, I would say. And they traveled to Sonoma Valley. Obviously, Sonoma Valley had a great start to the season. Tough league season so far. They just don't have the same numbers these other teams do, and Petaluma's still going to be riding really high off that Vintage win. So the Trojans keep it rolling in this one. Gus, you agree?
Yeah, I do. We don't know if Henry Ellis is back yet. I might try to ask Petaluma's coaches today what his status is for this week's game. But their quarterback has missed the last couple games for them, so hopefully he comes back soon. But I feel like either way, against Sonoma Valley, while they are kind of a plucky, feisty team, I think Petaluma is one of the favorites in the VFL this year. Obviously after their win over Vintage, so I think Petaluma takes this one pretty handily.
Yep. Cloverdale at Kelseyville. Kelseyville has not had the strongest season by any stretch of the margin. Cloverdale obviously getting their two key wins so far versus Willits and St. Helena out of the way. I just don't see this one that close at all. I think Cloverdale kind of runs away with it. No pun intended, because they just run Mason Canarelli everywhere. But yeah, not a close one here, Gus, and Cloverdale takes it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. This is again where Cloverdale's schedule kind of lightens up. But I will say that is kind of, recipe for just hoping to avoid a letdown spot. Especially coming off of, wins over two of the better teams in the league. You really don't. Now is not the time to take your foot off the pedal. And so I think that this is going to. I don't think it'll be. I don't think Cloverdale will have much trouble, but this is kind of where they have to, be more mentally resilient as far as, not letting their efforts slip against some of these, maybe lower tier teams in the NCL one. So I think Cloverdale does win, but a few games coming up where they have to kind of stay sharp, and not let up. So, but I think Cloverdale takes this one.
Yep. Those are our games for Friday. We're moving on to Saturday. Got a couple games on the slate. I will be at the St. Vincent versus St. Bernard's rematch. Obviously, going to be a bit of a different game because St. Bernard's do have some transfers that are not eligible to play. They didn't have in the season opener up in Eureka. But Gus, I mean, you've learned your lesson about picking against St. Vincent's because they let you know. So
Not again.
Trent, if you still want to rip a press Democrat issue in your pregame speeches, just look back to Gus's previous picks against you guys.
I'm not gonna give him that ammunition anymore. Sorry, Trent. You got to find your motivation somewhere else.
But we're going with St. Vincent in this one. I mean, the way they've been rolling, the way Kai Hall's been running, the way Bosarge has been playing. I think this is going to be a good one. And honestly, I've been talking to some people around the area, and they, people from Windsor and things like that, and they want to come down to Petaluma to watch this one. So it's a pretty big tilt, especially for D7.
The St. Vincent show, man. I mean, even at the St. Vincent Montgomery game, I mean, there were coaches from Casa Grande, coaches from, I think I saw a coach from Petaluma there, Rich Battaglia staff was there. I mean, it was like,
It's like you don't believe it till you see it, kind of thing.
Well, and also too, just having football, Saturday games too. It's like, what else are you gonna, go do on a Saturday? Go watch football. So. But no, I mean, this is, shoot, I know you're covering this, but I might even try to sneak out there and just see what's going on, just as an observer.
You are so you know what? Just no, stay away.
I'm gonna be in disguise, just over in the corner.
He's gonna be in disguise.
No, but St. Vincent this one. I mean, this is funny. I mean, again, first game of the season, St. Vincent traveled up there to St. Bernard's against St. Bernard's was missing a bunch of players due to transfer rules, ineligibility, whatever. One of them was their top running back, but and so I unaware of this, I stupidly took St. Bernard's. St. Vincent won handily. And St. Vincent has only looked better since, and St. Bernard's has had a couple tough results as well, I believe. So, but I do think that St. Vincent is kind of rolling right now. I don't see them slipping up here. Again, I think it'll be a little closer game. St. Vincent won by 26 last time, and even after that game, head coach Trent Herzog had said he's like I don't think next game it'll be a 27-point game, but I do think that St. Vincent will probably win this one again. But an interesting result just from the last couple of weeks is that St. Bernard's actually went to played at Oakland Tech and lost by 16. And that was a team that St. Vincent won pretty handily against. So, take from that what you will. But either way, I think St. Vincent wins this one and goes to 7-0 on the year.
Yep. Okay. 8-man football. Always got to finish up with some 8-man football. Rosa University Prep versus Round Valley. Before I get into this one, Gus, I want to congratulate the RUP volleyball team for clinching the NCL 1 League Championship for the second year in a row, and they've only been in the league for 2 years. I believe they have yet to lose a league match. Is that correct?
I believe they're 30-0 in league matches.
30-0. So,
just a wagon. Absolutely.
Good on the Rosa University Prep volleyball team. But we're talking football right now. Round Valley, they have some quality wins. They beat Anderson Valley like 62-6 and stuff like that. They're 3-1-1. They're one of the few teams who actually has a tie. But obviously Rosa University Prep, on the right track, but still in a building program phase. So I got Round Valley in this one.
Yeah, they were. RUP was supposed to play Emory last week, but I guess that game did not happen. Emory didn't have. I guess it ended up not having enough players, so it wasn't a forfeit. It was just a canceled game. And I heard that the NCL, I believe that's the NCL 3, it's a total 8-man league. I mean, teams like Tamales, Run Valley, John Sweat, Roseland Prep, Emory. I've heard it's maybe not doing super well. I know there's a couple teams that are really struggling with numbers, and that's even for 8-man. So maybe something to monitor there. See the future of that league sounds like it might even be in a little bit of jeopardy. But I mean, that's just small school. Unfortunately, it's kind of is how it goes. I think all these teams actually even used to have 11-man teams. So just or I guess except for RDP, which hasn't had this is the fourth year of its program. So small school league, this it tends to happen like this. Classes ebb and flow, and it seems like this is a bit of an ebb. So anyway, all that aside, yeah, like you said, Round Valley so far has been one of the better teams, it looks like, in this league. So yeah, I mean, RUP coming off of an unplanned bye week, off of their first win of the year over John Sweat, but I think Round Valley just might want to be one of these like better caliber teams as far as 8-man goes. So Round Valley in this one.
Yep, there it is. All right, so those are our predictions. That kind of wraps up what we wanted to talk about most for this episode. Just a quick reminder. So I will be doing a double dip this week. I have 2 games I'll be covering. I'll be covering the game of the week, Rancho at Windsor on Friday, as well as St. Bernard's going to St. Vincent on Saturday. Gus, you will be at Newman Annalee covering Newman for the second
Nope.
straight. Nope. Where are you at?
Nope. I'm doing the roundup this week.
Oh, roundup. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry. So programming note. Gus is no game coverage for Mr. Morris.
Working the dials this week.
We're working the 1s and 2s. We've had experience doing that before. But yeah, keep in mind some things to touch on. Exactly a week from today, I believe that meeting regarding the potential football leagues is going to be going on. I believe that's the 19th. I want to say.
Yes.
Yeah. So exactly a week from today. So next Wednesday, Gus is going to have all that for you. So just reminding you guys that that's coming up soon, and we'll see how it shapes how potentially the league could be shaping in a few years. So certainly something to keep an eye on. Some other key results here. Rancho Cotati beat Healdsburg in volleyball. Those were 1 and 2 in the NBL Redwood. And then Maria Carrillo got swept by Cardinal Newman, and that's if you want to go read more about that, check out Gus's prep roundup from yesterday. But yeah, big things going on in the volleyball scene too. In girls tennis yesterday, Maria Carrillo beat Cardinal Newman pretty handily, so that was a big match for them, especially for league standing. So we got things going on all over the place, Gus. But things are even getting more interesting as the season goes on.
Yep, and then I guess the other sport that we should touch on too is cross country. Montgomery sophomore sensation Hannah Thompson. It continues her amazing season. She won the Clovis Invitational by like 24 seconds. I mean, this was a field of 600 runners, some of the best in the state. And she just made everyone look pretty slow. So it's just kind of part of the course for her. Unfortunately, she was due to race against Sadie Engelhardt, the Ventura. I believe she's also a sophomore, who's one of the fastest run. I mean, her and Hannah are 2 of the fastest runners, not only in the state but in the entire country. They're both sophomores, and this was kind of supposed to be one of their first big. I think this was going to be their first big race against each other. And I know Hannah had been very excited about that. When I talked to her before the season had kind of begun, and then I guess Sadie had dropped out unexpectedly from the event before the race happened. So Hannah kind of didn't run super challenged. Again, ran away to a big victory. Hopefully, her and Sadie can race each other again at some point down later in the year. I'm sure they will. Come state time. Actually, I don't know if they're in the same division, but so maybe at some other invitational down the road. But yeah, I mean, Jude DeVries, I can never pronounce his name right. I'm sorry, Jude. He Montgomery senior. I believe he won the boys race, and then I think there was a Maria Carrillo freshman who won the Maria, that divisional race as well. So some good winners from over the weekend. And again, you can find all of that coverage and more stuff from us coming up this week at PressDemocrat.com/sports/PDPreps. Ken will have a game of the week preview coming up here in the next few days, as well as a 100-yard walk. Who did you do it with from Windsor?
Cameron Crane, that's who.
Right on.
Senior linebacker, two-way
Lineman.
player.
Nice.
What was that?
No, I was
Linebacker,
gonna
not lineman.
linebacker. Big guy again?
Listen, this guy Gus tries to always screw me over by texting all these little coaches because he's so close with them. Give Keenan the biggest guy.
I don't
Give Keenan the biggest guy. Make him look like a shrimp. You know, it's okay. It's okay. He's doing a lot more 100-yard walks than me, but just give this guy the biggest guy possible. But so yeah, that'll.
There are bigger guys than Cameron Crean that DJ could have given you.
Well, yeah, but then again, I mean, still, all right. All right. Anyway, obviously getting sidetracked a little bit, but that'll wrap up our podcast for this week. We appreciate you guys always for listening and watching, and we will see you guys on the next episode.